I'm Beverly, and I'm on the witness stand.
Well, this has definitely been a day, one that I honestly could not foresee in reference to the Diddy trial. The Kohberger trial is completely different, and I will touch on that at the end. The Diddy trial. It was like asking questions. They immediately said, well, we're gone for the day. Came in this morning really quick. They came back with a verdict. I felt like they probably knew what they were going to do last night and were trying to figure out how they were going to work this out. Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, and maybe it's one of those situations where what I think has happened in my head has not really happened, but I'm trying to justify it in some way, because I cannot figure how 12 people could not see what Diddy did as violent, as trafficking, as prostitution, which I guess they agreed on that. RICO, I just don't see it. I honestly do not see. Okay, let's say you don't get him for RICO, which I don't understand that, but I don't see how you could not get him on counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. So do I think it was maybe a compromise verdict? Could be. Do I think it was a compromise? No. Maybe guilty on 2, 3, 4, 5, and not a RICO. It maybe, but definitely not what they did. Diddy reportedly told his family, I'm coming home. And then they talked about the bail. And so were they going to let him out on bond, or were they going to let him out by giving him a bail? And they decided that they'd put together some, each team put together some letter and advised the judge. Then they moved. I don't know what happened in between time, because they were going to meet at 1 o'clock. And then by the next report, it was at 5. Well, shortly after 5, it came in, and the judge made some comments that gave me a little bit more faith and hope there would be a fair sentence at the end of this. What he said was the burden of proof had not been met as far as the risk to public safety if Diddy got out. And so he said no bond. And then, of course, Agnifilio just kept on and on and on, and trying to get the judge to change his mind. And judge just wasn't buying it. And he said that part of the risk to society or to the public, was the threat of violence. And he said something that, like I said, gave me a lot of hope when he said that even they admitted that he was violent. And if you remember his closing, Agnifilio's closing said that the violence was there. This was domestic violence. And yes, that was true. But, RICO and all of the other charges were not true. So here we come down to the hearing on whether there should be bail or not. And Agnifilio's acting like there is nothing wrong with this man. You see, he's been proven innocent of all of these except for these 2 charges. He does not have a criminal history. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. So when he said, it's domestic violence, That's one thing. But I want to point out to you about I know he wasn't convicted, but remember all of the things he got mixed up in? The shooting at the nightclub with Jennifer Lopez. There was something else that he did. I can't, right off the bat, I had one in my head and it's just gone. Everybody has seen too much. No matter what he was found guilty of, can the judge say that he's not violent? Everybody saw that video with Cassie. They could believe all of the other. I don't know about the jury, but I know that the judge cannot possibly unsee what happened in that hotel room. So anyway, judge says pretty much he doesn't want to hear it. He's not going home. So he sent them back to jail. So he scheduled the sentencing for October 3rd. However, he did say he would entertain the thought of an early sentencing. And of course, Agnifilio said they wanted the earliest one possible, but could the judge just go ahead and sentence him? But the judge shut it down, just shut it down and said no. So they have set aside next week on July 3rd. No, that is today. They have set aside next week, July 8th, to come back into the courtroom. And if probation, who does the pre-sentencing report, if probation can get their pre-sentencing report done expeditiously, then they will go ahead and have the hearing on the 8th. So as soon as July 8th, we may know what the sentence is going to be. So honestly, I can tell you that I thought it was a 10-year minimum on each one of those counts, but I don't think it is. I think it's a lot less. Maybe it's a maximum. I don't know, but I did hear right before I came in here that somebody had made the comment that the judge could go even higher than a 10-year if he wanted to, but he would need some sort of justification to do it. And I don't know what that would be. So before they did the bond hearing this afternoon, I was so despondent over it. And yes, I have an opinion. I was so despondent over it that I just said, he's going home tonight. He's done, whatever. He got his way. I'm coming home. But then the judge made all those comments about violence. And I thought, this is the hope part. Maybe he's going to say, no, Diddy, you're not going to get away with it. I kind of felt like the judge thought the jury got it wrong. Did you? Because I really did. I really did. But anyway, we don't know because I never thought we'd be here today. I thought for sure life in prison. So going back to that, if prison today, it's hard. So if Diddy does not deserve to be in prison for what he did to mostly the women, because I don't believe it was so much a sexual, and hear me out. I think he used the sex. He used sex to beat up and break down and humiliate and control women. I think he's got some really sick shiitake in his past with women. And it ain't right. I'm just telling you, something's not right there. But let's go back to something else. This jury pretty much said that it was okay to do what he did to the women. Now, I also heard about the makeup of the jury, that they're mostly older and they come from a generation, especially the men, and there were 8 of them, came from a generation of, you know, it was okay to degrade women because women weren't worth as much. I pray to God that's not true, because that would have been part of my generation. And I know it was in the past, but I just would hope that we have grown up to a point in this day that this would not be acceptable. God bless people like Cassie and the other ladies that stepped up. God bless them. And think about the fact that Cassie is right at 9 months pregnant. And she gets up there and she tells what is probably the most humiliating thing, the most embarrassing thing that could ever be in her life. And she was willing to step up there and tell it all. Now, there's also been talk that's saying they were trying to get money out of him. Cassie wasn't trying to get money out of him. She already did. That had nothing to do with it. Why would she go and report everything now and put her name out there? She wasn't looking for a paycheck. That had happened. I'll tell you what I think had happened with Cassie. First of all, I think that when she went for that civil suit, that was the way that she could get him. This is the way that she could screw it to him and say, you know what? I'm going to make you pay me, or I'm going to put you on blast. I think that's when she got hold. She got some power. And I think that is what she did. But she didn't ask to be part of this trial. She got brought into it. Other people were telling things. The feds got involved in it, and they started watching every little thing that he was doing. I disagree with people who say the feds didn't prove their case. I believe they more than proved their case. I do. I believe it was the jury. I think they messed up with juror 25. I think when the jury came back and said we're having problems, I think they should have dismissed that one, because that might have been the thing that hung them up. We don't know. I know that when the jury was dismissed, the judge said they could talk with the public, the press, if they wanted to, but he highly suggested they didn't. Well, remember, this is a high-profile case. There are crazy people out there. I don't know what happened, but I am going to stand wholeheartedly in support of Cassie, Jane, Mia, Bonna, and the guys that got caught up in it, Brendan Paul. I'm going to stand up. I don't know that Brendan Paul did a whole lot, but anyway, I'm going to stand up, especially for my ladies. Godspeed. I'm proud of you. Anyway, my prayers go out that Diddy goes to prison for 20 years. You mark my words. This is giving me O.J. Simpson vibes, and how he was rich and famous and powerful and he got out of it. And yes, I believe he was guilty. But they found him not guilty. And what happened? Karma. Karma. And let's all think about it. Do you think that he is going to stop what he's doing? Karma. Or maybe he'll get those 20 years and he'll get some karma in prison. Who knows? Anyway, so that's enough of him. I don't want to give him any more until next week. I don't want to watch anything else about him. I'm done. Let's talk about Brian Kohberger. I want to vomit. When I was watching him in that courtroom, just matter-of-factly saying that he killed them with malice and forethought, that he broke into their house, that he did all of these things. No, when the judge was reading that, because he had to read this form out to him saying, making sure that he was accepting this plea and he was doing it on his own. He was not being forced to do it. And then the prosecution got up and the judge asked them to present the evidence that they would have used against him in court. So there, I thought, okay, we're going to get some stuff here. We really didn't get a whole lot. We got a little bit more, but there was one piece was blood curdling. They mentioned something I had not heard, that after he committed these murders, he went back to his apartment. He took his phone and he took a selfie doing like he'd accomplished it. Just to be so nonchalant after brutally killing these young people. And there are sayings, people are saying things like, he's never going to be out on the streets. But you know what? He'll have a life. It may not be the life he wanted. It may not be the life he intended for himself, but he has a life. And what do these 4 kids have? They have nothing. And what I pray so much for is the family of those 4 young people. Because Maddie's dad said he was okay with the plea because he couldn't do it anymore. And you could see he was broken. He said he couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't live years and years and years of hearings and appeals and all of that. He said he just couldn't do it. And I understand, and I felt for them. But I also feel just as much for the family members who are furious, who are absolutely furious. And there were reports that they did not contact the families prior to, and then there were reports that they did. But what I understand was a letter was emailed to them saying it was going to be done, that there had been a Zoom conference discussing it. But I think it should have been a face-to-face meeting. And the other part of it was, I think that they should have been told by at least a phone call. If you can't do a face-to-face, which I think they should have, but if they didn't, I think they should have at least done a phone call with the parents to say this is what they were going to do. I am furious. I am absolutely furious about him not getting the death penalty. But I understand Maddie's dad. I do. My heart breaks for all of them. And I understand. We didn't think Diddy. We didn't think that was going to happen. So could there have been a possibility of him getting off? Yeah, maybe. And then what would have happened? 2 things. I think the attorney general in that state had better not be up for re-election. But he won't, because you know why? He is retiring. He was going to retire a year ago, and then he decided not to retire. And he's the one that made the decision. He's the one that made the decision to take the death penalty off the table. Yeah, so that's one thing. The second thing is I wanted it to go to trial, not to hurt family, not to do that, but I wanted it to be known what he did. Do I want to go in and see autopsy reports or hear that, all of that horrific things? No. But what I did want, I want to know why. And maybe we wouldn't have gotten the why, but I also wanted, and it could have been made mandatory, that he, in court, that there had to be an allocution, which means that he had to get up and tell what happened. He had to own up, not to say he was guilty of it, but to tell what happened. And the reason I say that they could have made that happen is because the attorney general could have said, the state's attorney general could have said, we will give you this, but this is what you have to do. You have to get up and you have to tell what you did, why you did it, how you got in, how you got out, what was your motive, all of that stuff. That should have been talked about. But instead, all he got to say was, I did it. I'm guilty. I'm making this statement of my own free will. That's it. So the prosecution has asked in the Kohberger case that they do impact statements and the final sentencing on next Wednesday, I think it is, which would be the 9th, so that it would give time for family members to get there. Those impact statements will be powerful and they'll be hard, I'm sure. And I'll tell you what else. It won't matter to him. He'll probably be singing Skippity-Doo-Dah in his mind the whole time that they are talking. Another piece of dirt that I hope splits hell wide open. I have one more thing to say about Diddy. He was reading The Power of Positive Thinking and another motivational book. He had prayer. Who's he praying to? Satan? Let me finish with this. I think it's always important that when you're remembering somebody's in your thoughts. Somebody's in your prayers. Somebody's in your heart. You say their name. Kaylee Gonsalves, Maddie Mogan, Zaina Kernodle, Ethan Chapin. May God be with you and with your family members.
I'm Beverly, and I'm on the witness stand.